a few more days to reveal what is left in Spiritforged, and it is still being mind-blowingly good at how this meta is going to shift as we move into Set 2. So what are the cards that were revealed in both English and China, and what can you expect with how this meta is shaping up? All of that and more starting right now. So yeah, it seems like that we had a lot of really interesting reveals, and on this go around, it was going to be a lot more of the Chinese media influencers and things of that nature that were going to be revealing their cards. Now, again, we only have until the 3rd. It's going to be the final day that all the cards are then revealed. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this is going to be shaping up. But it's still looking like a really fun set with a lot of legends that are going to be shaking up the meta. I already know one of my friends, Lancet, is going to be building up Aurelia. He's already sent me a couple of deck lists being like, dude, this is what I'm thinking. I'm getting so excited for this. And it's like, yeah, she's looking pretty dang good, but again, it's going to be so interesting to see how this meta is going to evolve, especially since we've already seemed to have a pretty big, shake up with how everything has been going in the first couple of big tournaments, mainly the 10K and the 12K in Atlanta as well. And so not only that, as we continue to discover what this meta necessarily means for Set 1 in America and English as a whole, well, right now we're already getting a big shakeup in Set 2 with Spiritforged, and that's going to be something really interesting as well because, well, now that we're already going to be starting to get some Wave 2 going on, are some people going to be looking at the Chinese, defining their meta at least, and being like, well, in anticipation of that, I'm going to start buying the Set 1 cards that are going to help me build the Set 2 decks when that comes out, or are things just going to kind of remain the same here? And that's going to be the big thing, especially with Wave 2 coming. We've already had a couple of stores confirm that their allocations have been set, and stores are going to be getting them sooner rather than later. So it's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the market prices as well. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to look at some reveals. And with that, first and foremost, we got Thwonk. Now, of course, that is with an exclamation point, but I don't want to blow out your eardrums. But with that, this is going to be an interesting card, mainly due to the fact that it is an action, so you can play it at action speed in that case, repeat 2, and you may pay the additional cost to repeat the spell's effect, so a new mechanic that we've talked about so far. Now, you get to stun an attacking unit, so that can be really good in and of itself, because if they don't deal combat damage and you're not able to get over the might of the opponents that's holding the battlefield, well, then they just go ahead and bounce right back to base. This can be something that's really interesting, especially with all the green that we happen to have circulating in this current meta as well. And I mean, being able to stun something now, of course, you still can defy it, which is going to be interesting as well. But at the same time, being able to go ahead and stun 2 units, I mean, that can make Master Yi pretty scary, especially early on in the game. And not only that, it can make a lot of other green decks, Azir and legends of that nature as well, to really make it difficult for you to be able to take over battlefields early on. So really interesting on how that is going to work. Not only that, we got Aspiring Engineer as well, that when you play me, return a gear from your trash to your hand. So a great way to be able to recycle things, especially with things potentially having a lot of gear destruction. We have Sabotage, a lot of different options to be able to destroy gear that's already in Set 1. And now, hey, by the way, I can go ahead and play a 3-cost, 3-might unit to be able to then recycle back a gear to hand so that I can play it again. So interesting idea there, and interesting to see how that's going to impact as well. Then we got another Mech coming in, and at 3 and 3 as well, though no power cost there in this case. And when you play me, you ready another friendly Mech. So pretty much the Mech equivalent of First Mate here, which is going to be an interesting addition to this meta. And already Mechs are looking like they're going to be a little interesting. Does it still feel like they're going to be the ones that kind of edge into that tier 1 top tier status? That's yet to be seen. I'm curious on if they're going to have enough of an early game presence because it feels like the end game is there, but not necessarily the early game. But still, this feels like a good step in the right direction and could be very scary. Now, of course, Frostcoat Cub. You may pay an additional Calm Rune, recycling it, of course, as an additional cost to play me. And when you play me, if you pay the additional cost, give a unit -2 this turn. And I mean, already that is pretty dang good for 3 for 3, but then also adding a -2 is a little bit good of a plot twist, especially when you are ready to attack in and you might need the additional help. Now, the big thing about this as well, and something that they have stated with Riftbound, which is why I'm going back to this, is that this set you can go into the negatives with might. What that necessarily means is that units will not be then dying when they are at the negative or 0 might, but instead just will not be dealing combat damage at that point. So they're really easy to go ahead and get over in that case. And so really interesting. It's basically if they're in the negatives, it's going to be as though they are at 0 so far as I understand. And that's going to be interesting. So they wanted to play around with that this set. I think it's going to be a good choice. And I'm glad that they said, hey, if it is at, 0 in this case or negatives, they're not necessarily dead. So that'll be good to at least see in this case. Now, with that, we have Drag Under. Now, at this point, I cost 2 less to play from anywhere other than your hand, and you get to kill a unit at a battlefield. So, again, if you are able to go ahead and utilize Rek'Sai and look at the top 2 kind of thing and be able to play this card, well, you could go ahead and just kill a unit at a battlefield for 3 in that case and recycling 1. Now, that's actually a pretty good cost at that point as well, especially because we already have a 4 cost to recycle that costs 4 at that point to kill a unit, but that is anywhere on the board. So is that going to be used instead of this? We'll see. But still, the fact that you can go ahead and play it for 2 less, and you could even play it on your turn or in showdowns as well, which could be a big difference maker on why you would maybe surprise your opponent with being able to do so. Now, here we go again with another one. Zinzao. So with that, a tank with 3 and a recycle for 4. Pretty good stats right there. And I enter ready if you have 2 or more units in your base. So, I mean, again, this could be a good acceleration early on, even for Victor or really any yellow running at this point, because you're already going to be having a pretty good time on getting things out when going first, let alone even going second. You could even spend that time building up your turn, playing a Vanguard captain or things of that nature and whatnot on the turn 1 to be able to have multiple units. And then come turn 2, you go ahead and play him and he enters ready. It's just going to be a really good time. Really good addition to Victor more than anything, just because you could go ahead and play a 2 cost unit and then a 1 cost to be able to play a guy out at that point. So really interesting on how that is going to work. Really cool to be able to see. Really small print on that card. Holy crap. Now, Under Titan. Now, this is going to be a 6 and 1 for a 5 might. So, not the best stats, but is the ability going to be a big deal here? It says, when you play me, give your other units +2 might this turn. So already kind of a lesser grand stratagem, but still really good. And then as I'm revealed from your deck, add 2. Holy, interesting. Just as I'm revealed. So that's going to be the big keyword there. That's interesting. And definitely something that could be making a big impact, especially as a rare. That's cool to see, and I'm going to be curious to see. That could actually make a big impact in this meta. Now, likewise, we have Trove Golem. Now, with that, that is going to be an 8 and 2 cost for 9 might. That is a big boy. Now, the only thing that we had like that in set 1 was going to be the Dragon for pretty much the same cost at that point, though that was 6 might, and you could kill a unit. Now, when you play me, play 4 gold gear tokens exhausted. So on the following turn, that could add a lot. Likewise, you could even find yourself wanting to run that in Renata as well, because man, if you are at 5 or more might, that could also add an additional 1 rune cost at that point as well. So you're able to pay the recycle and the 1. That's insane. Though again, being a 9, that's very helpful. But again, mid to late game, you're going to maybe want to play one, maybe two of these. Maybe one, though, is what more so of what I'm thinking with this card. Just because it does really help to get this ability off and having a 9 might out on the board as well. So, gonna be curious to see what ends up happening with that. Likewise, we got a purple, and it's 5 and 2 power cost for a 5 might. Again, you're like, I don't know how that feels, but man, if you can go ahead and target him, it's going to be really good, because when you choose me with a spell, draw 1. And that's not a once per turn, mind you. That is not even close to a once per turn. You can stack that. Again, really good card. The 2 power cost kind of sucks there, but there's a lot of ways for you to go ahead and choose him with spells. Now, of course, that's not going to be with gears either. There's a big difference there in that. That's the difference between like Magic the Gathering and this game, is that not everything is a spell. And so you got to kind of finesse your way around with that to figure out how to best utilize him with that. But I mean, you could go ahead and even like Stupefy and things of that nature for a -1 right after you play him and immediately draw 2 cards. So there's a lot of cool things that you could do with that. Great addition to Ezreal and things of that nature. Would be really cool to also see in Aurelia potentially. But again, time will tell on what these cards are going to be making an impact in this current meta. So far, these are the English cards. We're going to be looking at the Chinese cards here pretty soon too. Now, for 4 and 4, Yordle Explorer. Now, when you play a card with power cost of 2 power or more, draw 1. That's interesting. That's interesting because, yeah, that definitely is a pretty big cost, but also not having a power cost in and of itself is really good as well. Something you could get out on turn 2 and be relatively happy with that. And, you know, if you go ahead and, you know, do play things like Falling Star or whatever else your color coordination might be having, that could be something really interesting to add a lot more cards in hand and could be very nice as an addition. Now, of course, we get Jax coming in the green color. So we saw orange, now it's green. First off, has Deflect, which is pretty solid in general. Is going to be a 5 cost. 5 cost with 1 calm at 5 might. And then each equipment in your hand has quick draw. That's interesting. I like that actually, because then you can go ahead and play it at reaction speed, so you can move into a battlefield and then go ahead and play and attach equipment at reaction speed. So even after an action card is played by your opponent, if you have the equipment in your hand, you will then be able to go ahead and play it onto your unit. You still do, of course, have to play the costs and everything like that, but that's perfectly fine if you are properly prepared for it. And he doesn't have to be the one even attacking into the battlefield either. He can be in the backfield. Your units move in, and then you buff them up with the equipment and abilities that come with that equipment, and it can be really interesting to see how that is going to go down well. 8 cost, 2 power. It's a spell, and you return all units and gear to their owner's hand. That's interesting. So basically a board wipe, though you still do have the runes and things of that nature. And herein lies the risk and reward of that, because again, the 8 cost is going to be really nice. Super high, though, in that case, but still, this is going to be interesting because you don't necessarily want to time that where your opponent is just going to immediately rebuild, but not only rebuild, have the ability to reactivate the abilities of those cards. So you got to be a little bit careful about that for sure, but still, if you are able to time this better, this is almost a better Divine Judgment in that case, but there's that risk that Divine Judgment also has too, where your opponent is going to be going up to 4 runes. Now, likewise, this is purple. It's not orange in this case, and so going to be interesting to see how that actually impacts as well. Ancient Henge. Now, this, of course, is going to be a gear as well, 2 and 1 power in this cost, and then you are going to be able to pay any amount of energy to add that much power. So immediately able to go ahead and convert, and that's going to be interesting because that could also be a way to not necessarily need to have the, you know, seals in your deck potentially. This is a great way to go ahead. Now, of course, this is an epic rarity, so it is going to be a little hard to pull. and this could be a very expensive card in this next meta. So really interesting to see. Oh, and I mean, gosh. And you can do it at reaction speed. So you could even go ahead, and if you have any runes left over with like Set's ability, his legend ability, you could then potentially attach this to that as well and pay 1 to not have to pay the recycled rune cost back. And that could make Set so much more dangerous of a deck as well. So I don't know. This could be changing up a lot of things and giving a lot of focus and power to Orange as a whole. Really cool to see. Now, Glatsk, mixologist. Again, imagine if I say things correctly here. Death Knell as well. So we already have a couple of Death Knell abilities that have been revealed. Not only that, Set 1 has a lot of Death Knell effects, especially with yellow in general. So that's going to be real fun to be able to see. And with that, you may play a unit with the cost no more than 3 and no more than a power from your trash, ignoring its cost. So immediately just whoop, it's back. Not only that, being a 5 for 5 is really good as well. So you could get a lot of really interesting stuff to utilize here. Really good mid to late game kind of card that you could be utilizing here. And I mean, this is going to be so difficult to tell what deck I even want to play, because so far all of these are looking so fun. And right now we're looking at Ornn as well, and he has Deflect 2, 6 cost, no power here as well. So really interesting for 4 might. And then of course Deflect 2, Weapon Master. When you play me, you may equip one of your equipment to me for 1 power less, even if it's already attached. And I have +1 for each friendly gear. So really good. The only downside I would say is the 4 might here isn't necessarily all that great feeling, but still you can immediately attach a gear. But again, that's already adding to the cost of a 6 cost unit. So not only are you going ahead and paying out, maybe 2 to 4 for a gear, yes, you get to ignore the recycle cost. Cool, that's fine and all, but I mean, he can get big, but I don't necessarily know about how I feel about that. Just because the 4 is already kind of difficult. If it was at 5, even just that 1 additional might could be a big difference here, but unfortunately it's not. Now, Punch Fist. Interesting. And it's an action you can play on your turn or in showdowns. Give a unit +5 might this turn. 1 and 2 power again for Orange. This could sneak in as well, because we've already seen something like Primal Instinct, and that's only a couple more might, and it costs 4 and 1. And so this could very well be the card that is going to be, differentiating between playing Primal and this, and it's a common. So, I mean, yes, the 2 power costs, you're definitely going to be paying for that. But with how gold and everything is already looking, this could be a great change for that. And you could play multiple as well and not necessarily feel too hurt, so long, of course, as you have the gold or means to be able to do so. Likewise, 4 and 1 power for Production Surge. Now, this is going to cost 2 less if you control a mech, and you play a 3 might mech unit token to your base, and you draw 1. So again, they're kind of utilizing the same thing that, what you're seeing with Azir, Renata, Victor, things of that nature as well, but they're going more on the mech route. But each mech is looking like it's costing around, or going to be around 3 at this point. Now, also just having 2 less if you control a mech, that's going to be something fairly easy to do, especially if you do turn 2. So you could play a 3 mech, draw a card for 2 and 1 power. That's awesome. I love that. So that's going to be really cool to be able to see. This could be also a great card to really take your deck to the next level, because you could potentially even play out 2 mechs potentially in the following turn 2 if you drew well in that case. And not only that, being able to draw 1 and replace itself is such a powerful effect in this current meta. I mean, the more cards that you can have, the more that you can get through your deck, the better options you have on being able to go ahead and control this game. Now, of course, the last English card that we are going to be looking at is Rocket Barrage, and it's going to be 4 and 1 power with repeat for the same additional cost, and you can choose 1. You can deal 4 to a unit at a base or kill a gear. Now, That is a little expensive for that. It's also an uncommon, not horrible. But I don't necessarily know if this is going to be seeing too much play just because of the kind of lackluster ability and that there's already better options and other color combinations that could very well be complementing this. But also just the 4 and 1 is pretty dang expensive and not necessarily something all that great. So here we go, guys. Now we are going to be going into the English side. We're going to be zooming into the art after the fact, but we have Rumble Machinist. Champion unit, Rumble, Bundle City, Mech, Yordle, and your mechs gain 1 might, including myself. And when I hold, put a 3 might mech token in your base. So, I mean, that is going to be interesting. That's going to be your champion unit outside of the deck in and of itself. That is already so good. Keep in mind also with the Chinese wordings, these are rough translations, so the overall phrasing of these words could actually be changing a little bit, so keep that in mind. Now, really good ability right there. And then they also got to reveal the alt art as well, which is going to be really cool to be able to see. 5 and 1 for that ability at a 4 might. 4 might kind of sucks, but being able to build and take out another 3 might Met token, and you get to also gain 1 might for every unit gets to gain 1. I mean, that's going to be really good. Love also the comments here. While that is sadly true, Legendary Terror art is goated. So many of the alt arts in set 2 are massive downgrades. Yeah, I could see that. But I mean, but also I haven't necessarily seen too many that I've been like, oh, this is bad. So you drop 4 energy, 4 might, tank, mech, get it on base. Then you drop Rumble on top of that, so they have to chew through 10 might till kill Rumble. That be turn 2 card for Rumble. So interesting stuff right there. Seems very expensive and slow. Not necessarily, but interesting. Next card, of course, we are going to be looking at Lonely Poro. He a sad boy. We hate to see that. I mean, I'm already feeling pretty depressed now. But the biggest thing is going to have a death knell as well, which is interesting. That's different because we normally have only seen really yellow that has death knell abilities. There's a few maybe exceptions, but that's generally been tied only to yellow. But still, if I'm alone at my location, draw a card. So interesting. Now, that could also even be in base as well. If it's the only unit in base, cool, then it's able to draw a card. So really sad, Poro. I don't like that. I'm gonna cry now. Okay. Next, of course. Wow, can we just go to the top of the thread instead of in the middle? Oh, we've already seen this one, yeah. Hostile Takeover signature spell, and this is going to be interesting. Don't know why that was posted again. I think these are old at this point. No, that's 49 minutes ago. Interesting. Okay, here we go. Again, now, this is the champion unit. Now, if you spent at least 2 power this round, I gain 2 attack and ganking. So really interesting, and also a great way to even utilize the movement and stuff of Ride the Wind and things of that nature. So a great addition to that as well. And the alt art, yeah, that's kind of lackluster, but you know, that's cool. Good to be able to see here. Now, next, of course, is going to be Sword Destroyer. When you play me, you can choose and destroy a gear. Again, that's going to be green for 3 and 1 power, 2 might there. So definitely something that can be played on turn 2 potentially, and you're immediately able to kill a gear. Now, that could be also something to really hinder your opponent on playing Zhonya's Hourglass, or really any other gear that could be utilized. This is going to be a gear-heavy meta, so to be able to have these cards, it's going to be really interesting to see how all of that is going to be impacting, this meta here. So, gonna be really fun to see. Now, Hex Anomaly. Love the artwork here as well. 3 and 1. Looks like this is going to be a gear, and you can choose any amount of power and generate the same amount of energy. So the opposite of what we saw on the English as well, instead is going to be flip-flopped over, and that's going to be something really interesting as well, especially with how blue can create a lot of gold tokens as well. So you can flip-flop, get that kind of ramp to really add a lot of energy to be able to get some things going. So really cool to see. Now, Weaponsmith Apprentice. When I move, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a gear, draw it, otherwise recycle it. So a great way to add things like equipment and stuff to your hand. It is a 2 for 2, so something that you could even play out on turn 1 as an uncommon as well. So that's going to be really cool to be able to see, and you could really fish out some great stuff early on. And if you find something great, if not, then you are going to be recycling it. And that could necessarily mean that you're going to find some things that you absolutely love that you don't want to go ahead and put on bottom. But, that's just kind of the risk and reward of the game. Now, gear and equipment, a symbol. Now, this can be hidden as well. And when you play this card from hidden, equip it to a unit here. So that's going to be the big thing, adding 2 essentially, which is going to be pretty solid. And you can immediately equip it to 2. So if you have Teemo, for example, that is a hidden card, he goes up to 4 when he is revealed. Then you could additionally reveal this card as well, equipped it to Teemo, and that's, of course, if you're using Bondle Tree. So this could be a very fun card to utilize in a Teemo deck to really surprise your opponent. The more hidden cards that Teemo has at his arsenal, the better, and that could be adding a lot of really cool stuff. Now, of course, we have a unit, 6 cost, 5 might unit. Enemy spells or skills cannot target me. So really cool to be able to see that. Again, not necessarily a great ability, but not horrible. Likewise, here we go on to the next one, another unit. And when you play me, you and every opponent can choose to play a gold token. For every opponent that played a gold token, play an additional gold token. So this is going to be something really cool to potentially use in multiplayer, which is a format that we haven't necessarily talked out a lot on this channel, but it has some really interesting aspects to be able to add as well. Not only that, but even 2v2 has been a format that's been discussed, and even some gameplay that I've been able to see so far that's been really interesting and a fun dynamic to be able to have. Curious on how this is going to work. Also being a 3 for 3, I mean, you could get just a huge roll of momentum here, depending on the opponents and if you choose to use this in your main deck. So really cool to be able to see. Now, another gear and equipment. This is going to be a symbol 1, equip text, Death Knell, banish me. So interesting there. Now, pay 3 and a recycle, banish me, and summon every unit that was banished by me, ignoring cost. Interesting. Gosh, how's that gonna work? That's gonna be an interesting card. I feel like I need to see the English card to understand how this works. Yeah, exactly. That's basically how I'm feeling. When this gear is equipped to someone, that unit gets banished when it dies. I feel like this is not good. And yeah, this might be one where the translation hasn't necessarily come through as well as what we would like. Now, likewise, here we go with the next card, a 3 and 1 for a 3 might here in this case. And it is going to be a champion unit as well with reaction speed. When you play me, remove all damage on your units here. Then move one opposing unit from here back to its base. So kind of like what a Shin is, but in green. Not only that, but if there is any damage. So there's a couple of times where like Kais will go ahead and deal like a Falling Star to deal 6 to a 7 might unit. And then you could send in like a 1 might unit to go ahead and just finish it off kind of thing. Well, if they have 3 up, you might be seeing all that damage removed. And if it's multiple units and you see all this, well, it could be removed, and that's going to be something really interesting because we have like Flurry of Blades, which can deal 1 to everything. So if you're playing Azir, for example, and you have all of your 2 might units that get dealt 1 damage, well, they attack in thinking that they're going to take this battlefield with ease, or if anything, clear out a lot of utility, and you're just like, no, you don't. And whoop, they're all gone. And because all your units immediately get healed. And not only that, you then will be able to also add 3 might from her as well. So really fun to be able to see that. Not only that, Legion Quartermaster. It's a unit, and you must return a friendly gear to its owner's hand as an additional cost to play me, and that's for a 3 and a 4. Now, it's a must. So that means that you have to do that in order to play it. So if you have no gear out, this is going to be pretty much a dead card in hand. So something to keep in mind, but still a 3 for 4, not too bad. Now, here's another unit. This is a really interesting card and one that I've been thinking a lot about. It's a unit for 6 and 6. When I hold, you can choose to return a unit or a gear from your discard pile to your hand. So a great way to go ahead and fish some things back out. And still, no power cost is definitely something to keep in mind, especially with 6 might. It can be something really interesting to consider. But again, yeah, kind of what I was thinking was that it might be too slow, but you could go ahead and utilize Zonia's a lot, especially if you're going to just be able to get it right back out, play it out again for 2, call it good there. Great way to be able to do so. Now, Fiora in the orange. This is going to be interesting. Champion unit, of course. And it says, when I'm in a 1v1 attacking or defending, my might doubles. Interesting. Oh, I love this. So you could easily attack him for 3 might. Not only that, if you go ahead and equip a couple of might or a couple of equipment to this champion, it can be scary. Not only that, we also see some alt art here that's going to look pretty cool in the foiling as well, especially with the texture out. I actually like that. That's pretty cool. And we'll be interested to see how that's going to be, but that could be a very fun option and something pretty scary to add on. Now, here we go. I think this is one that we've already seen in this case. Yeah, we've already seen that one. I don't think we've seen that one. Now, this is Rek'Sai alternate. Yeah. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. Anyway, so yeah, I think that is going to be pretty much everything that we have seen thus far, and this is going to be interesting. Again, only a couple more days until all the cards are revealed, and immediately after that, even on Thursday, so long as they are on Piltover Archive and things of that nature, then we have a Thursday night fight that is going to be set to exclusive. So that is going to be really interesting to be able to see how all of that is going to be unraveled. But with that being said, guys, that is going to be it. What are you thinking about these reveals so far in Spiritforged? What deck are you going to be building? These set 2 legends are looking pretty enticing, and we will be going over a lot of those units later this week, so look forward to that. But guys, this is gonna be exciting. Can't wait to see what all this is going to do to change up this meta. But until next time, guys, have a good one.